This is Miss Eleanor at Relational Map, and today we are talking about something men over 50 face in the dating world that nobody describes with the honesty it deserves. A significant number of women in their 50s who say they want a relationship are not actually available for one, not in the way that matters. Not in the way that would allow a real man to walk into their life and stay there. The reason has almost nothing to do with their age or their appearance. It has everything to do with a set of expectations, attitudes, and patterns of behavior that have hardened across decades in ways that make genuine partnership structurally impossible, regardless of how sincerely the woman believes she is ready for it. This is not an attack. It is an honest account of what men actually encounter when they navigate the post-50 dating landscape, and why so many of them, men who genuinely want mature partnership, who are not chasing youth for its own sake, who have enough self-knowledge to understand what they actually want at this stage of their lives, quietly conclude that the effort is not going to produce what it costs. If you are a man who has been in that landscape recently and walked away with more questions than answers, stay with me. Understanding what you are actually encountering is the only way to make intelligent decisions about what to do with that understanding. My name is Miss Eleanor. This is Relational Map. 7 reasons why the post-50 dating market is not delivering what it appears to promise, and what a man who understands those reasons can do with that knowledge. The first reason: her expectations have not updated to match her actual position in the dating market. A specific and consequential gap develops in certain women between where they actually stand in the dating market and where they believe they stand based on the last time they paid close attention to where they stood. For many women now in their 50s, the last time they genuinely assessed their own position in the dating market with any accuracy was in their mid-20s. At that point, the assessment was accurate. Youth in the female dating market is a form of leverage so powerful that it temporarily suspends the normal relationship between what a person offers and what they can expect to receive. A 25-year-old woman of entirely ordinary accomplishment in every measurable dimension can access the attention of men who have spent decades building something real, can generate interest at a level that has almost no relationship to what she has developed as a person. The leverage is real. It is not dishonest to have used it. It is simply not permanent. As that leverage diminishes, an honest internal recalibration is supposed to happen. A genuine updating of the internal model to match the actual current position in the market. A real reassessment of what she can reasonably expect from a partner, given what she is currently bringing to the exchange at this stage rather than what she was bringing 30 years ago. That recalibration in a significant number of women in their 50s never fully happened. Not because of dishonesty. Because nobody told them it needed to happen. And because the culture actively discouraged it by telling women that their standards are a reflection of their worth, and that adjusting those standards is an act of self-betrayal rather than an accurate reading of how markets work at different life stages. The result is a 53-year-old woman operating with the expectations she assembled at 25, when those expectations were temporarily justified, encountering men in her age range who she finds insufficient. Not because they actually are insufficient, because they are being measured against the standard calibrated to a leverage she no longer holds. The men she filters out are solid, genuine, capable men who are available and interested and who would invest in a real partnership with full commitment. She dismisses them not from cruelty, but from a position that has not updated its internal map and is therefore navigating by coordinates that no longer correspond to the actual terrain. The man encountering this dynamic feels it without always being able to name it precisely. He presents himself honestly. He has built something real. He is interested and available and capable of genuine partnership. And he comes up short not because he is short, but because the measuring instrument being used against him is calibrated to a different reality than the one both of them are actually living in. He does not come back from that encounter with anger. He comes back with a quiet decision. The second reason: she leads with credentials and he is not looking for credentials. A particular pattern shows up in how certain women in their 50s present themselves in the dating landscape, and it tells a man something important before the first real conversation has even begun. The pattern is leading the self-introduction with professional and financial credentials. The career title, the owned home, the retirement account, the income level, the accumulated markers of a life that is financially stable and professionally established. These get presented as selling points, as evidence that she is a catch, as the primary argument for why a man should consider her seriously as a partner. A man who is himself established, who has built his own financial stability across decades of work, who has his own home and his own career and his own accumulated proof of his capability, is not looking for a partner who can match his financial profile. That is not the gap he is trying to fill. The financial dimension of his life is not what is missing from it. What he is looking for, what men at this stage of their lives describe consistently when asked honestly, is something credentials cannot provide, and that leading with credentials actively suggests may be absent. He is looking for peace. Real, consistent, unperformed peace. The experience of a relationship that adds to his life rather than subtracts from it. A woman whose presence makes things lighter rather than heavier. The experience of being with someone who values who he is rather than what he has accumulated, who would be present in his life through difficulty and not solely in its comfort, whose commitment is to him as a person rather than to the lifestyle his accumulated resources can provide. The woman who leads with what she has built is communicating, intentionally or not, something that runs directly counter to what he needs to hear. She is communicating that she thinks the relevant dimensions of a potential partner are the same financial and professional ones she is leading with, that the exchange she is proposing is transactional at its core. Credentials for credentials. Accomplishments for accomplishments. A merger of two established individuals rather than a genuine union of two people who have chosen each other specifically. He has been through enough to know the difference between being chosen for what he provides and being chosen for who he is. And a woman who introduces herself primarily through what she has accumulated is telling him, before he has had the chance to know her at all, which of those two things she is offering. The third reason. He is reading her history, and the reading is accurate. A man in his 50s navigating the dating landscape has usually been through something significant. A divorce. A long relationship that ended badly. Years of watching what happened to men he knew inside marriages and relationships that cost them more than they returned. He is not naive about what relationships can produce in their worst versions. He carries the specific alertness of someone who paid for an education and has no interest in repeating the tuition. Meeting a woman who is also in her 50s and also single, he is not simply meeting a person. He is encountering a history, a set of choices made across decades that produce the current situation. And he is, whether he is doing it consciously or not, reading that history for information that is relevant to the decision he is being asked to make about whether to invest in this particular person. The fact of a divorce concerns him very little on its own. Divorce happens to good people in impossible situations and tells a man almost nothing about what the future might hold. What concerns him is how she describes it. The degree to which her account of what went wrong contains any genuine acknowledgement of her own contribution to the failure, or whether it is a version in which she was the protagonist of a story in which she was consistently failed by someone else and then had the courage to leave. He has heard that version before, usually from both sides of the same divorce. He knows the story a person tells about their own failed relationship is data about that person, not an accurate account of what actually happened. A woman who has arrived at 50 with a story in which she was consistently let down by men who could not meet her standards is giving him a preview of how she will eventually describe him. He is also reading the current behavior. The standards she describes, the way she talks about the men who have expressed interest in her recently, the language she uses when she describes what she is looking for, whether the picture she paints of her ideal partner has any relationship to the actual landscape of available men, or whether it describes a person who does not exist in any realistic version of the world she actually inhabits. He takes all of this in, he processes it through the filter of a man who has enough life experience to know what the data usually means. In many cases, he concludes, quietly and without drama, that the patterns are sufficiently entrenched that the investment required to navigate them is not one he is prepared to make at this stage of his life. The culture calls this avoidance. He calls it accuracy. The fourth reason. She wants what he offers and is not offering what he needs. Successful, lasting partnerships are not built on identical contributions from both sides. Genuine partnerships require genuine mutual investment in the other person's well-being. Two people each trying to make the other's life better rather than each trying to extract the maximum from the arrangement. In certain relationships with women in their 50s, a man encounters an asymmetry that becomes visible quickly to anyone paying honest attention. She has a clear and detailed sense of what she wants from a partner. He should be emotionally present, financially stable, consistent, reliable, interested in her life and her concerns, supportive of her goals, capable of providing the security and companionship she is looking for at this stage. These are not unreasonable things to want. They are genuine needs. The problem is not what she wants. It is the absence of corresponding clarity about what she is prepared to offer in genuine reciprocity. He needs peace. Real, consistent, unperformed peace. The experience of a relationship that does not require constant management to remain functional. He needs to feel that his presence is genuinely valued for who he is. That what he brings is received with appreciation rather than cataloged as what he is expected to provide. That the commitment he makes will be honored with the same seriousness he brings to making it. He needs a partner who brings something to the relationship beyond her requirements of it. Not financial contribution necessarily. Energy, warmth, the genuine effort to understand who he is and what he needs, rather than the assumption that meeting her needs is the primary obligation of the arrangement. In many of the encounters a man over 50 has with single women his age, those needs do not get treated as real needs a potential partner has a genuine obligation to consider. They get processed as the minimum bar a man must clear before she decides whether he qualifies for the relationship she is willing to offer. The exchange gets structured from the beginning around her assessment of his sufficiency rather than a mutual honest inquiry into whether they're good for each other. He feels the asymmetry, sometimes in the first conversation, sometimes over several encounters. but he feels it clearly enough to respond to it. And a man who has been through enough to understand what genuine reciprocity feels like and what an asymmetric arrangement costs him over time is not going to invest fully in something that announces its asymmetry before the second date. The fifth reason, the men she actually wants are no longer available to her. A structural reality of the post-50 dating market rarely gets discussed with the honesty it deserves, because discussing it honestly requires acknowledging something certain people find uncomfortable. The men she is holding out for are not sitting in the same dating pool she is sitting in. They are making different calculations about where their investment is most likely to produce what they are looking for. A man in his 50s who has built genuine success, who is financially stable and physically maintained and psychologically grounded, occupies a position in the dating market that is structurally different from where he stood at 25. His options have expanded rather than contracted. He is not limited to women his own age. Women in their late 30s and 40s, attracted to stability and maturity and the specific groundedness of a man who has figured out what he wants and is no longer performing uncertainty, are available to him and interested in him in ways that would not have been true 3 decades ago. He knows this. He has felt the shift in who pays attention to him. And while that attention does not automatically produce better relationships, it does expand his range of options in ways that make the trade-offs of dating women his own age a genuine calculation rather than an assumed default. The woman in her 50s asking where all the good men are is often asking about men who have quietly updated their range and are no longer operating within the constraints she assumed would keep them accessible to hers. The men she would have been well matched with a decade ago have not disappeared. They made a different calculation about where their investment is most likely to produce what they are. This is market mechanics. A woman who understands market mechanics rather than experiencing them as personal rejection has a significantly better chance of making intelligent decisions about how to navigate the landscape she is actually in rather than the one she expected to find. The sixth reason, she has mistaken his availability for desperation. A man over 50 sometimes encounters an assumption in women his age that a man who is interested in her is a man who has no better options, that his interest is evidence of his insufficiency rather than evidence of genuine attraction, that the appropriate response to his consistent attention is the careful management of his access rather than genuine reciprocation of his engagement. This assumption produces a specific dynamic that experienced men recognize quickly. She is interested enough to continue engaging but not enough to invest genuinely. She maintains the structure of a developing connection without committing to the vulnerability that genuine connection requires. She keeps him at a managed distance while she continues to assess whether something better might present itself. She treats his consistency as something she is owed rather than something she receives with appreciation. A man who has built genuine confidence in his own value does not experience this dynamic with patience. He experiences it with clarity. He can distinguish between a woman who is genuinely present and a woman who is managing her options and treating him as a placeholder. He responds accordingly, not with drama, but with the quiet decision of a man who understands his own worth and does not need to convince someone of it. The irony is that this dynamic almost always produces the outcome it was trying to prevent. The man she was managing because she was not certain he was good enough demonstrates through his departure exactly the quality she was failing to recognize. The recognition arrives too late. A man who has been managed rather than chosen does not typically return to present himself for reconsideration. The seventh reason, he knows what he is looking for and the current market is not offering it. What a man over 50 wants from a partner is something the dating market consistently underestimates in its significance and overestimates in its rarity among women who are capable of providing it. He is looking for a woman whose presence makes his nervous system settle rather than activate, whose company is associated with rest rather than performance, who he can sit with in comfortable silence without the silence requiring management, who responds to his difficulty with genuine care rather than additional demand, who appreciates what he brings not because it meets a standard she established, but because it is genuinely what she values in a person. He is looking for a woman whose word means something, who makes commitments because she intends to honor them, who has done enough honest internal work to know the difference between what she actually needs and what the culture told her she deserves, who can choose a real person over an idealized one and invest in that choice with genuine fidelity. That woman exists. She is not rare in any absolute sense. She is rare in the specific population that presents itself in the post-50 dating market because the women who develop those qualities use them to build lasting marriages in their 30s and 40s and are no longer available. The pool that remains has been shaped, not intentionally, but by the mechanics of how markets work toward women whose expectations, attitudes, and patterns of engagement produce the outcome of being single at 50. Those factors are not incidental to where they are. They are in many cases the primary explanation for it. A man who understands this is not a man who has given up on genuine partnership. He is a man who has developed an accurate map of the territory he is navigating and can therefore make intelligent decisions about how to move through it. He knows what he is looking for. He knows how to recognize it when it is genuinely present rather than performed. He knows that the patience required to find it is a better investment than urgency and availability. The absence of what he is looking for in the current landscape is not evidence that it does not exist. It is evidence that the market, like any market, requires patience and genuine discernment rather than desperation. The woman who is right for him at this stage has done the internal work. She knows who she is and what she brings and what she genuinely needs rather than what the culture has told her she deserves. She has arrived at this point in her life with enough honest self-knowledge to approach a potential partnership as a mutual investment rather than an arrangement designed to deliver what she has decided she is owed. She does not announce herself loudly. She does not lead with credentials or carefully managed presentations of availability without genuine vulnerability. She shows up as herself, and herself is enough. When you encounter her, you will know the difference. Your nervous system will tell you something it has not been telling you in the encounters that have not produced what they appear to promise. It will tell you that this one is safe, that the person in front of you is not managing you toward an outcome she determined before you arrived, that she is genuinely there. Hold your standard for that. It is worth holding. Drop a comment. Men, if you could name one specific thing you need from a partner at this point in your life that you have consistently not found in the dating landscape you have been navigating, what is it? Put it in the comments. The men reading this need the real answer. Subscribe to Relational Map. Every week, Miss Eleanor maps what is actually happening between men and women in language that gives you clarity rather than comfort.